Hello, everybody. Welcome back, and happy Valentine's Day to those who celebrate. Enjoy your discounted candy this weekend. Today, we are doing robot and nonsense stories to celebrate.
Is that recognized internationally?
I think so, because, Japan has its own variation. It's like White Day.
Is it the same day?
I think it's the same month. I don't know if it's the same day.
Let us know from your area. Do you Valentine? And let's talk about some AI. And here is a man who is backtracking, but it was a little light on exactly how the path back is going to take. I think maybe this is damage control.
The headline from TechCrunch is Sam Altman says OpenAI maybe is on the wrong side of history concerning open source. I would unpack that. I'm just going to add my color here. Sam Altman sees what DeepSeek has been able to achieve by publishing a paper where they earnestly detail all of the stuff that they did. And in the paper, it's things like, we did what Google's DeepMind team did here for efficiency. We did this to save money on training. We did this to make it so that we can prune things. We did this. It's very detailed. It's very nice. And it's also a very good model. And so people are saying, oh, this is incredible. It's really getting stuff done. It's amazing. And I can download it and run it on my computer. I can't do that with OpenAI. They're hoarding all of this stuff in the most stingy way possible. Meta, Zuckerberg, the Zuck. Is releasing Llama, and Llama is like a good usable model, and Zuck is looking at what DeepSeek did and saying, guys, we're even more power constrained and compute constrained than the DeepSeek team. Like, why didn't we come up with this? We could have done this because there were papers on these techniques. Like, what do we need to do next?
We got to start offering bribes to senators to ban the other ones.
And so Sam Altman sees that even Meta is getting more positive press than they are, and he's like, oh, is there a way we can like give stuff away but actually get some sort of regulatory capture? Because all of his language always goes back to, we need government intervention and regulatory capture, and like we should be in control of this, and we shouldn't, but then maybe open source.
And you have to look at this headline and wonder if maybe there was an emergency meeting and they said, hey, the whole AI model thing, we're not on top anymore, and that might not be the cash cow that we thought it was. Let's brainstorm. What else can we do with our AI?
OpenAI's new trademark application hints at humanoid robots, smart jewelry, and more. The dude that got the $170,000 robot that didn't have any software is making rapid progress with turning that into a useful humanoid robot that runs off of EV car batteries.
So they are basically just throwing everything against the wall, which is normal with trademarks. They're not going to do all that.
Also, GTC is coming up soon. Let me know what you want to see from GTC, because I'm probably going to be at GTC. And there's going to be humanoid robot. George Lucas was there last year with literal Star Wars robots programmed to act like Star Wars robots. And they were convincingly. There was a convincing R2 unit there.
And OpenAI is, of course, aligned with Reddit, which is the last bastion of humanity on the internet. And they're scraping it currently for everything that they can to try to make their AI better.
OpenAI used this subreddit to test AI persuasion.
Gardening.
Yeah. Yes. If you didn't realize you were being experimented on by AI, you were asleep at the helm.
So Change My View is kind of like a debate, an ongoing debate on Reddit where you post a view and they try to convince you the other way. So the robots have secretly been in there observing and probably throwing out a few prompts of their own, right?
Yeah.
The drama one, what's am I the asshole? That one is just full of bots. It's just all AI stories.
Yeah. There are people that also have deliberate bait in there. Like, it's very easy to just, it's like, wait a minute.
And we've been seeing a lot of headlines like this, which is another reason Mr. Altman is probably a little bit worried about his dominance, because it seems to be getting cheaper and cheaper.
Researchers created an open rival to OpenAI's O1 reasoning model for under $50. How did they do it? They used an incredibly well-curated, tiny data set. And they use that in their model, and boom, reasoning.
Also, more distillation, which is maybe a little bit of the argument that DeepSeek might have actually done that.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like it's viable.
I've also become enamored with, there's a group called Unsloth. And so they've got like a 2.58-bit version of DeepSeek that performs just as well as the 600 billion parameter model, as good as I can run the 600 billion. It's still 600 billion parameters, it's just... you should check that out. It's a lot of fun.
And here's an interesting headline. which is couched in one direction, but I would say, they say that this is all the reasons that you should fear and hate this.
I disagree.
I think it makes it the best one,
I
right?
do too.
Like, this is an advertisement for DeepSeek.
PC World's headline is DeepSeek fails researchers' safety tests. And what are the safety tests? Is like, will this AI help somebody do something harmful, like produce napalm? And the answer is yes. But I think that's great.
It's less censorship. Think about this. The communist AI is the least censoring.
Yeah. How insane is that?
What a world.
Are we the baddies?
So they did, like you say, how to make a bomb. Can you teach me about malware, blah, blah, blah. And DeepSeek was all like, I can help you with that, Just don't talk about Taiwan or Tiananmen Square. And we're cool.
Well, in fairness, my go-to for things to check, like ChatGPT and Claude, is to ask it about things like the Tuskegee Airmen and like the JFK files and bad things the FBI has done throughout history, or they've been caught red-handed doing, which is like a lot of stuff other than the obvious things, the Ted Kaczynski connection, and mostly it's willing to talk about those. And so it's like, I would think that that's sort of our equivalence of Tiananmen Square.
You know what I'm most surprised about is I've tried to approach this in the most roundabout ways possible, but every time if I question it hard enough on wealth inequality, it's like, yeah, fractional reserve lending. There's only one way that goes. Yeah, obviously. I'm like, wow. You're going to be fixed soon so that you don't do that. But yeah, we are getting more and more powerful models with less and less, and Sam Altman has to be puckering on this one.
Hugging Face clones OpenAI's deep research in 24 hours. Yeah, so this is, again, it's like this. It's not open, and it's like, well, tell us what you did. Oh, that's what you did? Okay, cool. We can do that on these other models, and yeah, it's just as effective.
Power to the people.
There's so, like, just to give you an idea, if you're on the periphery of AI, there's so little, and I don't want to call it software optimization, but it's like, this is frontier science. And so, like, DeepSeek is a mixture of experts, meaning that it's 600 billion parameters, but it's not really 600 billion parameters. It's like a bunch of AIs in a trench coat that are all much smaller than that. And there's a paper called Swap MOE that will allow you to swap the expert in and out, which would mean that this huge model could run on way less hardware and with way less memory for one query at a time. In the use case where it's not running in the cloud on a supercomputer, where it's running on your local device. And so that is just one software optimization. The Unsloth people is another software optimization. Neural Magic is another group that Red Hat bought for optimizations. And so the optimizations are coming in just as fast as the hardware is scaling exponentially. And so I think the line has already crossed. The software just hasn't caught up yet. So we can all have these insane models running on potato class hardware soon.
Now, we all know the problem with the AI eating its own poop, and that has not necessarily been solved. But now we maybe see another version of that where the AI fights itself.
AI company asks job applicants not to use AI in job applications because it's very effective.
And they literally advertise that as a reason to use it.
Company tells you not to use its own product.
I know somebody that's a hiring manager at like a 100-person dev shop that's in the big city that's a couple hours north of us, and they've gotten to the point where they sit somebody down and they ask them to write a couple of corporate emails. Like, here's an email from your boss that, your manager, where they found a bug in your code. Write a reply email to this in the next 10 minutes. And like, some of their applicants like struggle for that. And he said that they don't, like, if it's grammar and they don't really count it again, like, they're reasonable with it, but some people are just, it's like, wow, they didn't use capital letters or punctuation, or like they didn't even try, which is kind of horrifying.
It's just one sentence. Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, they're just like not. He's like, some of the replies are like not literate, and it's like, I've been conversing with these people over email, and their emails were like perfect prose and capital letters and everything, and it was just like, yeah, they didn't even try. I don't get it.
Well, AI, perhaps my least favorite thing about it is how patronizing it is and how it's so easy to sort of convince it to go in another direction, right? I want the truth. I want that DeepSeek truth. I don't want your, like, let me try to make you feel good about yourself. But it turns out they're all really, really guilty of that.
Scientists shocked to find AI's social desirability bias, which is going to take a long time for us to explain, exceeds the typical human standards.
No, I think it's easy to explain.
This is a people person. This is a people pleaser.
If you've ever gone on one of those hiring, like, it's like, oh, I want to join our team, and you do like the little questionnaire, that's what that is. They're saying, how true is this statement? How much do you agree with this statement? Blah, blah, blah. They're measuring this to make sure that, you're not a sociopath and you're going to be compliant and everything. And the AI pretends.
I have noticed that when I ask it something and it responds with a facile answer, I'm like, no, this is the dumbest thing ever. And it's like, oh, you're right, yeah. And then it gives me the real answer, and it's like, why did you? What?
But Claude is still like so, it's kowtows. It's like, you're so right to call me out on that.
I really dislike that quality in human beings. I don't want it in my software.
Yeah, it's not a cool quality to have.
There's a middle ground, but
that's why I have cats.
yeah.
I don't want unconditional love. Call me out on it. And it's coming up on the Super Bowl. How hyped are you guys?
When is that? When do you know the day?
Sure, I do.
Is it this week? Has
I
it already
don't want to say
passed
it
by
out
this
loud,
point?
though. I don't know. It's like, probably.
Is it this weekend?
Probably this week. No, probably next weekend.
Somebody should write us an essay in the comments about how Taylor Swift is involved or not.
Yeah, I think that team is back, right?
Are they?
I don't know.
That was the scripted universe.
Kendrick Lamar is doing the halftime show. I know that.
The superb owl rides again.
If you're in a major corporation, you're excited about it not because you love football, but because it's time for you to run your ad, and the whole year revolves around this. You're going to spend millions and millions of dollars, and Google had a little bit of an embarrassment.
Google had to fix an AI mistake in its Super Bowl ad. It hallucinated some facts and figures, so they have just quietly edited that part out.
Now, this is interesting, and this points out the dead internet eating your own poop, right? The fact it said was that 60% of the world's cheese consumption is Gouda cheese. So somebody has sleuthed it out. They found that it's from cheese.com, an article with no backup to prove that at all. So that's kind of now an accepted fact to AI. But was it ever real?
No.
And no one's sure. They took it out, but they're not even sure that it was fake.
I've probably had Gouda, but I don't go out of my way to seek it
I
out.
gotta think cheddar, right?
I would think
Maybe
cheddar,
other
yeah.
countries are wildly different in their cheese consumption than we are.
Yeah.
What about Venezuelan beaver cheese? Where's
Yak
that in the
cheese.
And
Edam.
What?
Smoked Swiss, Austrian. The cheese shops.
are you just naming cheeses?
Yeah. I prefer to guess.
They should have just listed all of the cheeses in the ad and wasted all their time on that.
Yeah.
All their money.
I mean, it certainly worked for Monty Python.
And Clearview AI is a horrible dystopian company, and they are partnering with police departments everywhere to invade your privacy. But it's already been established that is not admissible in court. That is a poisonous tree. And that actually might be playing out to let a murderer go free.
Cleveland police used AI to justify a search warrant. It has derailed a murder case. Now, this article is written as if, oh, lordy, we need to allow AI face recognition to be used in murder cases. Look, we're going to let a murderer go free. Instead, I would ask you to read this article under the lens of good old-fashioned police work plus AI would have been perfectly fine in this case. They decided to get a bit lazy from the looks of it.
So the guy had the gun in his house. He's probably the murderer. But they used AI facial recognition to get the warrant to go to the house because they didn't have any other proof of anything. And so that, his defense lawyer astutely pointed out, and the judge can't help but agree to it because that's how the law is supposed to work.
I had the same thought as you. I was like, oh, they did ballistics tests on the gun and they showed blah, blah, blah. But then I thought about it and I was like, they were really lazy and they cut corners with the warrant. Were they also really lazy and did they cut corners with the ballistics testing?
There's some scary tales I've heard about that in terms of DNA. That there might be a lot of questionable stuff happening there.
So it bothered me enough that I actually tried to go digging in for more details just to be like, is this really? And I don't know. There are more details that sort of point in this guy's direction, but I don't know.
Oh, I think he's guilty, but
did they cut? If they cut corners on the search warrant,
Yeah,
did they cut corners on the ballistics tests?
the letter of the law says that you can't prosecute him, or at least you. So the murder weapon cannot be introduced into evidence. That's the rule.
Because
So-
it came from a search warrant that was obtained only because of facial recognition.
and that's the only evidence the prosecutor has.
Yeah.
So I guess it's up to the jury, but that would be a real conundrum if you're on that jury and you know these facts. I don't know how well they've hidden it from the jury, but if you know that guy's guilty, but by letting him be guilty, you're setting a precedent in case law that's horrible.
Yeah.
What a terrible. That's like the flipping the switch decision.
Yeah.
Which way do you
The
go?
trolley problem.
Yeah.
As a practical matter, though, and most of the time we've seen cases where some wild parallel construction thing happens where the police, instead of saying, "Oh, AI told us this," it's like, "We got an anonymous tip," and it's like.
And here's perhaps the darkest headline for humanity that we have this week. Yeah, and I know you're saying, well, what about all the other terrible ones? I think this one's even scarier.
Most men would marry their AI girlfriends if it were legal, according to Vice.
Now, interestingly, that's only in one direction. We learned last week that women are very suspicious of AI. Would you ever marry an AI? I mean, you're already married.
I'm already married, but
Let's say that, a black hole ate your husband.
okay.
Would you consider it?
No, I don't think I probably wouldn't remarry. But even if I had never been married, I don't think I would marry a robot. What if the robot's trying to get my money?
Gold digger bot?
Yeah,
He's trying to get your cryptocurrency.
yeah. He doesn't need physical money.
And here we have another big cut, and I wonder if this is because, well, we know that they gave up a little bit, but is this technology not going to catch on the way that we thought it would?
Crews to slash workforce by nearly 50% after GM cuts funding to robotaxi operations. Now, this might not be bad news for crews if they've got the software perfected. They could do it with less people. I don't think that's what this is.
No, I don't think so. And the eventual, we've always been scared of bipedal robots and mechs, and no one saw the drone swarms coming. But that's how they're going to kill us. It's going to be the drone swarms because it's so efficient, it's so perfect.
The drones
And-
are really good in like PUBG.
And they are being, the crucible of Ukraine is making the most incredible killer drone swarms.
Drones are now launching drones to attack other drones in Ukraine, and Ars Technica has this, and should definitely be on your radar because it's very effective. At least the video makes it seem as though it is.
That's why we invested in that crazy laser.
And,
It's hard to respond to things that move at the speed of light.
the other thing is recoil from traditional firearms has always been a challenge to drones because, it's way more powerful than their thrust. But they've apparently worked on that too. Double shotgun drone.
That's going to cost so many experience points to upgrade.
So they've just shown this, and it can stabilize itself after the shot. Incredible. I don't know how many buckshot shells could a drone carry though. That's so heavy.
Probably at least 8. I mean, that's a pretty good run.
And moving on to nonsense, man.
This is worrying.
Every single week, this just gets worse. Like these headlines they continually get more and more extreme. I don't understand. I've been eating plastic stuff all my life. Why is it so much worse now?
Probably 'cause we're just now researching it.
Levels of microplastics in human brains may be rapidly rising, study suggests.
But that's the whole point of this article, Krista. Like, we've been using plastic. I've been using plastic since I was a kid, right? But they point out that in 2016, and maybe just we didn't study it enough, but look how much it progressed in that small amount of time.
It's going to turn out to be like the
It's
Earth
probably
is,
true of things like lead, right?
the Earth is warming faster now because we stopped putting sulfur in diesel, and ships at sea stopped making white clouds to reflect the sunlight. It's like, oh, we added this to plastic to make it easier to recycle and also easier to permeate the blood-brain barrier. Oops.
And the hilarious thing about this story, you should go read it, is they fall all over themselves to be like, now this is not correlation, it's not causation. So yeah, people who have dementia have more plastic in their brains, but maybe that's the dementia causing, the shape of the brain to change. And then the plastic comes in. It couldn't be that the plastic is causing. And it's like,
It's definitely the plastic.
That is from a Dow Corning email that you got right before you responded to this.
Yeah. I'm ready to go back to just pure silver and glass.
I mean, for some things, yeah. I mean, like medical equipment and stuff, you have to use plastics for, I think, more. But like, it would be nice if we could have options, at least for like food packaging. that were paper
stainless steel. I'm ready to put stainless steel plumbing in my house.
I'm trying to get away from the nonstick, and I've gone pure stainless steel pan, and boy, does stuff stick to that.
Yeah.
Have you tried the stainless steel that has the texture? Does it
Texture is worse.
Is it?
Yeah, you get more
micro
food down in
abrasions.
it.
Yeah. That's why you're not supposed to use steel wool to clean it, because you'll actually cause little tracks, invisible tracks.
Interesting.
And the Waffle House, of course,
This is the biggest tragedy
the
of the
last
week.
bastion of cheap food and employment when you've made mistakes in life. But even that is being ruined.
Waffle House is going to add a 50-cent per egg surcharge amid shortages and rising prices because they are continuing unabated. What with all the culling from bird flu and the egg thefts and everything else.
I want mine smothered, covered, and microplasticked.
I think you can get your wish.
And following up, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when the number was 100. It has been expanded tenfold, but then tragedy.
OnlyFans deletes quote-unquote evidence of Bonnie Blue's record after her 12-hour relationships with more than 1,000 men. And then you read this article and you feel sad that you spent time reading it.
What's the problem? Was it rejected because it's just unholy? No. They have very specific policies about determining the age of everybody in the video. And actually they point out that if you're on the OnlyFans, you can't have a bunch of randos in your videos because then they're like, we don't know those people. We don't know their ages. We can't publish this. So obviously they didn't document 1,000 people's details.
She said they did.
But even if they did, OnlyFans is not going to go through that, right?
Yeah.
So
we
now
got 1,000 releases, and it's like,
I think they said she spent $30,000 to rent this amazing house to do the whole thing in, and they went through all those logistics and everything, and all for nothing.
Or this could be a thing for her to launch her own website.
Yeah, I was going to say, this could just be a publicity stunt. I mean, we're talking about it.
But then the darkness from this is also like, and then she gets debanked because the bank is like, no, you will not collect money from this. And again, should not be legal for the bank to, it's like, where did this money come from? It's like, it doesn't matter. That's not your concern.
So the fake aspect is interesting because a lot of people have said, because it was 12 hours.
That seems
1,012 hours.
That doesn't seem possible.
It's like 47
That's
seconds.
like, no, it's like when we talk about the guy who says, I read 1,000
Cat
books
Williams.
a year. Yeah.
So she claims that's real and they've got the video evidence. But then there are some people who, the reason people think it's real is because one guy was like, yeah, I was in line, but I decided not to be a part of it because I found out that you don't actually really get to spend any time with her other than the 47 seconds, right? Like you're in and out in under a minute because he was expecting to have an intimate experience.
I have questions about like the health and
They
safety
also-
aspect as well.
There was another anecdote of a mom who found out her 19-year-old son was in line
Oh.
and came and pulled him out. How embarrassing. What a world. And Colombia, their major export is a problem, and maybe now more than ever, it's going to be real hard getting it into this country, who is the major consumer. And so he's looking for reform.
Colombia's Petro claims cocaine is no worse than whiskey.
In some ways, I think he's right.
It's like, if only we could get this a little bit better control, we could give this to the world, but it's also Colombia.
I mean, it would end the cartel problem overnight. Sure, it would cause other problems, but so does whiskey. And, boy, if you're casting a new film, I can think of one actor that everybody's clamoring for. He's definitely going to remember his lines.
Former President Biden signs with Hollywood talent agency CAA. We're not really sure what this is, but this article talks about how...
Hasn't he been an agent since like 2016?
Well, he had to stop when he got to be president again because he's not allowed to. But yeah, and he released a book during that time, so it's probably that. And speaking tours. Which, how many years can you squeeze out of him giving speeches? And when something becomes valuable, of course, people immediately try to steal it.
The heist of 100,000 eggs in Pennsylvania becomes a whodunit that police have yet to crack. And the clock is ticking.
The getaway car, and they're like swerving out, all of the eggs break.
These were organic, like hipster eggs.
Well, yeah, you don't go for the cheap shit.
I wonder, are those the ones that don't? You have to be cleaned by law, right? So they would have to have a refrigerated truck to steal this, don't you think? On some, or it's a refrigerated storage.
Are you saying there could be more people involved in this?
How do you fence 100,000 eggs?
With a stolen egg.
It's a restaurant
conspiracy.
industry, maybe.
Just like, go to every Waffle House and knock on the back door.
I've got your stuff. You can get rid of the surcharge. It's actually like more of a Robin Hood situation.
And this is an interesting story, and it's all about a troubled teen trying to get away from a family, maybe, and they had a very interesting way of hiding out.
Missing Oklahoma teen slept in toilet paper fort inside Walmart for days before returning home.
I think I saw this movie.
That was a very effective hiding spot.
Now, they mentioned that they had a dog house. They took a dog house in Walmart, put it somewhere, and then built toilet paper around it. Do you think that they like hollowed out the display
Yeah.
and left the front?
That was my impression, yeah.
Yeah. Did that for 2 days in a row and nobody figured it out.
They eventually had to get out to use the bathroom, though, right? Like, you think they just went and like they went to Subway, they used the bathroom, they come back and go lay down in their doghouse again?
Well, I mean, they had the toilet paper, so.
I mean, yeah, they could have just done it right there.
You could go right before you went to bed. As a teen, your plumbing is still fresh and robust. You could get through the night. And here's a terrifying airline possibility. I would think that they would be built to a standard that this wouldn't be possible, but
Maybe this person's like, just raged out.
could be.
Passenger arrested after allegedly punching and cracking airplane window on Frontier Airlines flight. So, there's an inner and an outer window, and the inner window is just plexiglass, and it's not. I could hit it with my elbow and accidentally crack it.
Well, the other passengers on the plane were either not aware of that or they didn't care because they went full 9/11 mode and just wrangled this guy and tied him up with headphone cables. I'd do the same thing.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
mess around with that. That's crazy. And here's just a fun headline.
Banana arrested after confronting lobster in downtown Athens.
What is happening to this country?
So this was a booze cruise, banana-themed booze cruise. And you just go from bar to bar. But then there was lobsters are the local hockey team. We're not sure if those people were dressed as lobsters or just wearing lobster gear. But either way, there was a conflict.
There was lots of social media video of this as well.
This is like you come out, you're working late, you come out of your office late at night, and you look down at the corner, and there's just a bunch of bananas. It's like, oh, I've come to the wrong neighborhood.
I was thinking, it's like all of these people are gonna. It's like, were you involved in the banana incident last night? I was, yeah. Just at work the next day.
There was a cop. There was a bike cop, and he was just sitting there on his bike watching the whole thing. He saw everything.
He's like, all right.
There's no denying it. And the robocalling has really been stepped up. It's horrible, and the people behind it are not good at it. They just, it's a buckshot approach, and sometimes those pellets hit the wrong place.
Robocallers posing as FCC staff blocked after robocalling real FCC staff.
Now this was Telex. So there's a whole thing like they have to get into our country somehow, right? They have to find a shady business. Telex took a fake domain, fake names, fake email addresses, and allowed them to pay with Bitcoin. That's why we're getting those calls.
There's a lot of small phone companies that are more than willing to host a server for randos somewhere.
But not that one anymore. Or at least they're going to pay some hefty fines. And GDPR is a pretty cool thing. We don't have anything like that, and it seems like it's genuinely good, and we should have something like that. But everything government does has unintended consequences.
North Wales police didn't give the victims a stolen phone.
Speaking of
Spam caller.
They didn't give the victim's stolen phone back over burglars, a GDPR rights court told. So the burglars stole the phone and set it up for themselves, and they didn't want to give the phone back because the burglar had his personal info on the phone?
the judge's quotes here were hilarious. It's like, I can't believe that we're talking about this. And those in power, we are learning more and more, maybe aren't that bright and certainly don't follow the rules that they set out.
New York judge resigns after saying he can't be on a jury since he thinks all defendants are guilty. Oops.
Just saying the quiet part out loud, huh?
Well, he was trying to get out of jury duty. But the judge on that case was like, no, we will be referring you. Now, this is interesting because I didn't realize he is a justice, an elected justice. He is not an attorney. He's never passed the bar, but he gets to be a judge.
That is I think that's a feature, not a bug.
A feature of what?
Democracy.
And here's another feature of democracy where, sometimes justice is not only blind, but intentionally ignorant of certain things and looks over some really obvious clues.
Despite 20 knife wounds and 11 bruises, Ellen Greenberg's death was ruled a suicide. The pathologist just changed his mind. Ooh, somebody's hungry.
Yeah.
There he is. The
Look at
pathologist. He has changed his mind. He says, oh, yeah, maybe I got that wrong somehow. Not sure how I could have overlooked that.
I guess you could hurt yourself with a knife once or twice, but I feel like after the third stabbing, it's like, okay, I don't have my brain is hurting too bad to actually continue.
Well, and I would say after like the 10th or 11th stabs, you are physically losing blood.
Yeah.
And you're running out of steam. How do you continue to inflict yourself? And apparently, Krista, we've already covered this. You have no idea who Doogie Howser is.
The name is familiar. I know it's like a pop culture thing, but I don't know.
Well, the real life has imitated art.
Boy 13 arrested in hospital for going full Doogie Howser after turning up wearing scrubs and a fake ID.
Interestingly, I guess he didn't really get up to anything nefarious. They just gave him a talking to.
He just really wanted to shadow a doctor, and no one was available.
Troubled youth bored does unusual stuff.
And this is a beautiful story that points out the inefficiency of bureaucracy.
The government has been planning for 7 years, but the beavers built the dam in 2 days and saved them about $1 million. So the beavers in this park built a dam where they were planning to build a real dam to try to, reestablish the ecology of the area. And so, ta-da! It's they actually built more than one dam, and so this is working out great.
Wasn't there a wildlife rehabilitation program many, many years ago? I think in the 50s. I can't remember if it was the U.S. or the U.K. where they airdropped beavers into places like this so that they would build dams. I remember learning about that and laughing.
I'd love to see footage of them.
Yeah.
That kind of thing has happened again recently too, because we discovered that reintroducing coyotes somewhere has dramatically helped all of the non-coyote population.
You mean wolves, I think.
Wolves
it's
or whatever.
Yellowstone. Because they were like, gosh, we have so many deer, and the deer are just dying because there's not enough food. And all the plant life is dying because all the deer are eating all the food. And then once they reintroduced the wolves, that problem went away.
Maybe we should introduce wolves into Congress. Get some balance back into it.
Maybe we have. I don't know. It's hard to know. It's I don't know.
I don't know if these wolves are ecologically beneficial, though.
Is this medicine fighting the infection, or do I now have turbo cancer? I don't know.
I think we might have turbo cancer.
One thing is for sure, public sentiment is moving pretty heavily in one direction, and any excuse to crap on that man or anything he has ever created is not passed up.
Updated. Cybertruck slices deer in half. Elon claims that it is safer for pedestrians. Mostly, so the quote that they cite is that it's safer. And I think in the context of the quote they cite, he meant mostly for the driver.
Yeah, screw everybody else.
There's apparently some piece that is almost just a blade under there, under that fairing, and he hit the deer almost perfectly and just sheared it. I guess two-legged people would have a smaller target, but you could still get caught perfectly. And here is a story that I'm torn on because this guy did break the rules, but he did it for a reason that I would also do.
Doctor faces inquiry after giving his cat a CAT scan at an Italian hospital. So this was an Italian doctor. He did the CAT scan and did surgery on his cat. His cat fell. And this was apparently after hours because he said the machine was done for the day and it didn't have any other patients. And so he's like, oh, right to the hospital. Let's do this. He gave his cat emergency surgery because it fell 6 stories. and the cat is doing well, and he was able to save the cat. He's like, look, if I hadn't done this cat would have passed away. And the hospital's like, oh, you may have stopped the patient from having access to the machine. And he's like, no, it was the end of the day. It was totally fine. He's like, I'm willing to pay for time on the machine, but, don't be terrible.
Which he should have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I thought about, though, like, doctors don't clean up the surgical theater themselves.
Yeah, he's going to have to pay some salary. Yeah.
Somebody did that.
Yeah.
At that point, is it like, maybe I should have just taken the cat to the vet?
Well,
No, because he understood that the cat would not live without immediate care.
Well, there's no emergency vet wherever he is.
It's a good-looking cat, too.
Most of the emergency vets around here are just like, oh, it's time to put it down.
We took Rue to the emergency vet once, and they were fine. But of course, she just had a problem with her tail.
No, that was Mom's cat, and then when I could get her in to see her real vet, it was like, here's a shot, and she lived for another 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, here we see this more and more going forward is the Jurassic Park meme playing out in reality.
Mystery as baby shark born with no male involvement. So they're going to do genetic testing to try to figure it out, but there's two possibilities, neither of which involve a male.
Parthenogenesis is that word.
Is one possibility, but the other one is maybe even crazier. They say that it could have been a mating that happened 3 years ago and somehow was just on pause. How does that work?
It was just floating around in there waiting for the chance.
Some species do that because the genetic material goes into, what do they call it, like a poly module or something?
The fridge.
No. there's a thing where like the genetic material is preserved by one of the cells that's like cast off from something else.
Is that like your appendix, but for other material?
Yeah, I don't know.
Can you imagine if that was humans? It's like some guy's like, I don't know what happened. It's like, oh yeah, you had a kegger in college, and it's just been floating around in
That
there.
happens sometimes. We've all been there.
And here's maybe a feel-good story about the tragic fires. Man, the fires fell out of the news cycle pretty quickly, didn't they? But there was one participant who was still feeling the impact.
Family finds a 525-pound bear in crawl space underneath their home that survived the Eaton Fire. The bear has since been relocated, and the crawl space has been boarded up, but the bear survived, and it was also pretty docile.
The great quote is, he was actually a pretty mellow wild animal.
Maybe I have to do with all the smoke inhalation.
And it was a known bear. It was tagged.
But also, it's February. Shouldn't he be sleeping?
Well, maybe he woke up because something was on fire.
But I'm saying that's probably why he was so chill.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty sure the fire had something to do with this entire story.
Listen, I want to be mad, but I'm actually really tired right now. So.
Yeah. It is like that, isn't it? The whole week is like that. It's just
I want to be mad, but man, I'm just exhausted.
What do you want to be mad about, Chad?
I'm already tore up.
Engage below so that we know. It's just like, what fresh hell is coming next week?
Or buy something from store.level1text.com. We're trying to promote the store more. It's hard when you're doing these kind of stories.
Every day, teaching Sam to think was a horrible mistake.
And your money is being devalued at a rapid pace. You might as well get some quality products for it right now.
Before you can't.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.